Have you ever felt like your classroom is spinning out of control no matter how hard you try to keep things in order? What if I told you there's a way that empowers you to confidently manage behavior? Welcome to the Teacher's Impact Podcast, or better yet known as The Tip, where teachers can come to master their craft, use their voice, and enhance student learning. In this episode, or on the bookshelf, we'll be talking about Effective Classroom Management with Assertive Discipline by Canter. It is one of the best books that has helped me with my classroom management. It is so concrete and lays everything out in a way that you can implement, follow, and adjust. And it's definitely one of those books that I used at the beginning of my career, and sometimes I reread it to help me refreshen or just to freshen up my classroom management, to remind me of some of those skills that are going to help me with those difficult students. Classroom management is one of the most important skills to master to become a better teacher. And a quote to get us started: discipline is not something you do to children, it is something you develop within them. That quote is just so powerful, right? Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on the book Assertive Discipline, just a quick short summary about it. The book Assertive Discipline encourages you to take control of your classroom, and it gives you detailed steps and guidance, which include, so I'll just lay it out for you. The first step that the book lays out for you is that you should create a discipline plan. And in this discipline plan, you should have a hierarchy of the consequences and of the positive things that will happen when students follow your rules. It also gives you lots of examples that you can use, that you can follow. The second step that the book tells you to do is to teach your discipline plan. It tells you step by step how to do this, almost sort of like a lesson plan. The third step is it talks about teaching responsible behavior. So not only do you teach your discipline plan, but you teach the behavior that you would like to see from your students. One of the ways that the author talks about is teaching responsible behavior. And to teach responsible behavior, part of this is using supportive feedback to motivate students. Another part of teaching responsible behavior that he talks about is redirecting non-disruptive off-task behavior, proximity, calling the student's name while teaching. And these are just some of the tips that he discusses. And one of the tips that I've used that has helped me so much is proximity, moving closer to the students. I work with elementary students, and he talks about how when you're using proximity, you should be moving in closer to younger students, but for older students, you should be moving away. The other part that he talks about is implementing corrective actions. And one of the things that he says is that you have to be consistent. So every time the student disrupts, you have to follow with a corrective action. Once the student follows the request, you need to give supportive feedback. The other chapter talks about integrating behavior management and teaching, pulling it all together. So what he does is he gives scenario on teaching and how to handle behavior and teaching at the same time. And he also talks about difficult students, what we should do with these difficult students, and developing an individualized behavior plan for those difficult students. All right, so now we'll get into some of the key components that he talks about in assertive discipline. The first key component is clear expectations. He says that you must explicitly state the rules and consequences. So, for example, your rules should be something like follow directions, keep your hands, feet, and objects to yourself, And a tip for this one is that it must be something that is observable. So I think for this one, you should be able to measure it. So it has to be something that and it has to be something that is observable. So for example, if you're teaching and the students are constantly getting out of their seat, one of the rules that you can have is to stay in your seat. So once the child gets up, you know that that child has not followed the rules because the child is out of their seat when one of the rules is stay in your seat unless told otherwise. So setting those clear expectations are important. The second key component is consistency. And consistency helps to build trust and respect with the students because they know that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And it also matters because you hold yourself accountable as a teacher and it holds the students accountable. So if you say that once you break a rule in this classroom or once you don't follow instructions in this classroom, this is what's going to happen. Once you follow through and once you're consistent with those consequences and those positive reinforcements, the children will start to trust you. And I know this is true because last year one of my students, he said to me, "You respect us, so we respect you, Miss Ogilvy." And I think this is one of the reasons why my student said this, because I'm consistent when it comes to the rules and making sure that I'm clear and consistent. The third key component is positive reinforcement. So, with positive reinforcement, you're focused on rewarding those appropriate behaviors. Specific behavioral praise is one of the most effective ways to prevent those disruptions in your classroom. Okay, so you need to be very specific. If you see that students are doing what they're supposed to do or they're staying in task, oh, I see that you're staying on task. I see that you're completing your work assignment. Great job. So you're being specific and showing students exactly the type of behavior that you want from them, and you're giving them positive reinforcements. He also talks about tangible rewards, but he says that tangible rewards should be used sparingly. And I agree with this one because you don't want it to be a situation where you're always giving out tangible rewards for your students to be listening. The fourth key component is consequences. So he says that in your discipline plan, there should be a hierarchy of consequences that we talked about. And I'll just get a little bit more detail. So, with the consequences, when I talk about hierarchy, when he talks about hierarchy, what he means is okay, the first offense, what will the consequence be? Okay, for the second offense, what will the consequence be? For the third offense, what will the consequence be? And he also says that you should include administration and parents within this hierarchy. As an example, what I use in my classroom is your first offense for not following the rules is a redirection or a warning. The second offense is points taken off. Third offense, a phone call home. Fourth offense, if the behavior continues, will be having a meeting with administration. So these are just how I use it in my classroom. Obviously, this is not the exact thing, but I'm just giving you an example of how I use it. Okay, so the fourth key component, consequences, they should have a hierarchy and lays out exactly what you're going to do when students don't follow the rules. The fifth key component is parental involvement. So he talks about how to collaborate with families, and what he says is that you should let parents and families know about the discipline plan and what you will do in severe circumstances. He talks about scheduling one-on-one with parents, telling them what you will do and what asking them what they suggest that you do to help with working with their students, working with their children, Yes, so a tip for this is once you come up with your classroom management plan, you need to send it home with your students to have the parents sign off on it. Okay, if they read it, that's a different story, but you're letting them know that this is the discipline plan that I've created is to help your child to learn how to make choices, and I'm here to work with you. And I can tell you that they do read it and sign it because every year I send my discipline plan home, and the parents always assign it. Okay. And he also says, talks about building relationships with parents is crucial for reinforcing those expectations. So, again, if your parents don't know about your classroom management plan, they're not going to be able to reinforce at home what the behaviors that you're expecting in the classroom. It's almost like homework, like the academic side of it. You send homework home so that your students are able to practice, and the parent can help to reinforce those skills that you're teaching. Same thing with the behaviors. And I think sometimes that teachers shy away from doing this, but it's a crucial step that you need to do that is going to help you, because once you get towards the end of your hierarchy, your discipline hierarchy, and you call your parents, oh, they know why I'm calling, why the teacher is calling, because on the discipline plan it says after the third or fourth offense that I'll be calling home, or you'll be calling home. Another quote that I found that really resonated with me in assertive discipline is this quote: when you build trust and respect, discipline follows naturally. All right, so that's the background and the key components of assertive discipline. So I'm just going to give you like a practical application of how this works in my classroom. I have a student, we'll call the student X. So this student is very quiet, but he likes to tease and touch. Oh, just for some background, I'm a first grade teacher. And yeah, so just for some background, I'm a first grade teacher. I have about 20 kids in my classroom at this point. Obviously, things might change. I might add or minus, but I have 20 students in my classroom. And yeah, so I have a student X that is very quiet, but he likes to tease and touch the other students during instruction. So another student came to me and told me that student X was bothering her and touching her. So I said to student X, I said to him, I said, well, first I said to the little girl, I said, if he does it again, please let me know, because I'm watching him to see if what she's saying is correct. Okay, so it happened again, and I said to student X, I said, the rule is keep your hands, feet, and objects to yourself. And I told him that this is a warning. He continued to do it. So I went to class dojo, and I took 5 points away from him because he continued with the behavior. He continued to get upset. Then he chose to throw a pencil, and I said, the rule is keep your hands, feet, and objects to yourself. So I took I took points from his class dojo. He continued with the same behavior. Then he pushed the desk, and he can't push the desk because how the desks are set up is another student sitting in front of him, and I didn't want the desk to be pushed into that student's stomach. So then I said to him, I said, the next step is your parent will be getting a phone call if you continue to not keep your hands to yourself. So he stopped for a minute, okay, and he stopped moving the desk. I gave him a minute because I know that he was upset from all the prior things that happened. I gave him a minute to see the behavior that I wanted. I wanted him to stop, and I wanted him to pay attention during instruction. So after I saw that he was okay, I told him to pick up his math book and and to continue his work. I said, please pick up your math book and go to problem number 2. Then, after he did this, I gave him a minute to do this. Then I said to him, thank you for listening. So, this is just a practical example. I mean, I noticed that the student, he was trying to ratchet it up throughout every time there was a consequence for his behavior, but I had to really remind myself to stay calm and follow through with my plan instead of like, just going off, you need to leave my classroom. Oh, you need to. I'm not perfect, and there's been times when, this have happened, but in this circumstance, I followed through with my plan, and this child understood that this is the consequence and this is what's going to happen. No, so the choice for you is to listen. The practical application and just some quick tips for you. You may have some sort of a plan in your head, a classroom management plan, but writing it down is a game changer. It'll just help you to structure and refine it. Okay, and once you structure and refine it, you have it in your head so that in the moment you're able to follow through on the way that you're supposed to follow through. If it's in your head and it's kind of murky, you're not really quite sure, then it's going to be hard for you to follow through. So, tip, write down your classroom management plan. Second tip, don't forget to teach your expectations. So, teach your students what the behavior that you're looking for. What I do with this is I show them the behaviors that I want, then I show them the behaviors that I do not want, and then I go back to the behaviors that I want. Okay, third tip, you can always reset at the beginning of a marking period. If you feel like something's off, whatever you're doing, you can always reset. Okay, another quote that I found that really resonated with me is this quote from the book: consistency is the cornerstone of effective classroom management. So it goes back to that consistency, following through and say what you're going to do and do what you're going to do every single time. Okay, last thing I wanted to talk about that he touched upon in the book was assertiveness. He says that teachers should confidently enforce rules without being aggressive or passive. Assertive, you're not aggressive and you're not passive. It's right in the middle. For me, assertiveness means your tone, your stance that you take. You're saying to the students that this is the rule and this is how it's going to be enforced. Okay, so your voice, your physical presence is part, for me, is part of being assertive and not being aggressive. Okay, and the passive side of which is ignoring the behavior, not addressing something that you see when a student is not following the rules. And the students will tell you when those students are not following the rules, so you won't have a choice but to aggressive. So he talks about being assertive, confidently enforcing those rules that you put together. And the last quote that really resonated with me is: reward the behavior you want and you will see more of it. Okay, so key takeaways from this episode is: make sure to set clear expectations with your students. Make sure to be consistent with those expectations. Make sure to give positive reinforcement and also involve the parent. Make sure to be assertive, not aggressive, not passive. So, what I want you to do, I want to encourage you to reflect on your classroom management practices and try one of these strategies this week. Uh, Again, we know that reflection is important, but I think sometimes we get so busy as teachers, we get bogged down with everything, we forget to reflect. So, reflect and see a strategy that you can try, okay? Thank you so much for listening. If you have any classroom management experiences that you want to share or any questions, please You can check out my Instagram at Teachers Impact Podcast. I'm also on Threads. You can check us out there. So please share. I'm more than happy to hear. No judgment here because we've all been there. We've all had our issues. And so just feel free to share. I'd love to hear from the listeners. And again, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to check out the website, teachersimpact.net. Happy learning and growing.